Okay, I want to continue our lessons here talking about APE writing. It is the game changer when it comes to writing not just paragraphs, but then on into essays. I think this is probably one of the most important writing lessons that you can have. Um, so APE, if you read the notes from Blackboard, it stands for Assert, Prove, Explain. Okay, so that's right here, how to write a strong paragraph. I learned this method a long time ago, and it makes so much sense that you make your claim. Some of you have heard the word claim being used, but basically you're asserting your opinion here when you address the prompt, whatever the prompt is, and then make sure you're providing specific, relevant sentences. Okay, so remember in our, if you picture that hourglass, you start off broad and general, and you get pretty narrow when it gets to the thesis, and now we're in the narrow essay writing. And so for that first strong body paragraph, we're going to use APE. You're going to make your first claim that's related to your thesis. So whatever it is that you're trying to prove in your thesis, that's what you do for this first sentence in the APE method. The second step is that you prove it with textual evidence. And of course, where does that evidence come from for us? It comes from the 5 articles that you have researched and found that either support or go against your assertion or your thesis. The last step is to explain how the proof supports the assertion. Okay? So that's all there is to it. Explain, if you really struggle with writing, one of the things, the little techniques that I recommend is to use this shows or this proves as your explanation sentence, so the explain part. And then when you're done, go back and remove the words this shows or this proves. But basically that is what you're trying to say there. All right, so APE writing. I think it would be best if we did an example together using the article that we found in our previous video. So I told you that metacognition was something I was very passionate about when I was getting my master's. I still am. I think thinking about thinking is very important. It's part of that learning process. Okay, so actually I don't want to look at the quote that I chose. I want to just think about what claim I want to make about metacognition. So just as a refresher, metacognition is asking someone to think about their thinking process. It's not so much that you got an answer wrong, it's that you messed up in your process. So if you fix the process, then you will tend to learn from that mistake. Okay, so when it comes to education, I would say that metacognition should be a part of a curriculum. Okay, so that is the thesis that I would put forth. One of the main reasons why I believe this is that metacognition helps with the learning process. Okay, so if I'm writing my paper and I told you that your thesis, so I'll put thesis here so you know the difference between the two. The thesis is the overall claim for the whole paper. That's that last sentence of the first paragraph. And so I actually shared with you before that it makes sense to use this phrasing. While some people or scholars or academics or even politicians, whatever you're trying to prove here. So while some people believe that learning is all about a grade, a closer examination shows that learning happens when one thinks about their thinking in a process called metacognition. So I've acknowledged the other side. I've said what I believe about it. Notice I never said I believe or I think or in my opinion. You never use that first person in these argumentative papers. Okay, so that's my overall thesis. So one very important piece of this that I need to prove is that metacognition, so this is going to be my assertion. Okay, so I'm going to say something like, metacognition is the key to learning through a process. Okay, now that's pretty similar to my thesis. In fact, if I were giving myself a critique, I would probably say, hey, your assertion needs to be more specific. So how would I change the word learning to something else? What is it specifically that you want to see happen? So maybe I change it to something like metacognition should be part of every lesson a teacher teaches, something like that. Okay, now, that's all fine and dandy if I say that, but where's the proof? That is the whole point of this research paper, is that you find supportive evidence that proves your statement here. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my quote, and I happen to know this is a really good quote. This came from the discussion part of this article. And so let me read the whole sentence, and then I'll show you why I highlighted what I did. One of the most significant outcomes we observed from our approach of teaching metacognitive skills through TSI pedagogy was that teachers and students can improve their ability to evaluate their cognitive strengths and weaknesses and to learn to use that knowledge strategically. And it goes on to talk about the scientific part of it, but that's the quote that I wanted to hone in on. It really does support what I'm trying to prove. So I'm actually going to copy, or you can do Control-C, or if you have a Mac, Command-C, that copies. And I'm going to go over to my paper, and I'm going to hit Control-Shift-V. That makes it the same font. I may have to make some corrections with spacing, but that really is the best way to copy quotes into your paper. All right, now, this is not a complete sentence. Well, it is, but I want to make it something, I don't want to make it so choppy. And so I need something that's going to lead my reader into this idea that teachers and students can improve their ability to learn, basically. So I might say, well, I need to put an attribution. That's what I'm going to do. So in APA, you are communicating to your reader who said that without saying so-and-so said. That's very, basic. And so at the very top, well, I'll find my authors. So Serafin, Filipov, Kopp, and Vallon, they said this. Okay. Now here's the problem. In APA, when you have more than two authors, you use something called et al. If this were my only person, Serafin, actually I'll just do two. So I'm going to make a little copy-paste action. I think I forgot an F. All right, so Serafin and Filipov. Okay, so I'm going to put Control-Shift-V. Okay, so Serafin. And this is the trick. This is how APA works. It seems complicated, but it's really not. When you have two authors, you put Serafin and Filipov, and I said there were two Fs, and then the year it was published. Okay, so this was published in 2012, so I put that in parentheses. That's it. Now, what I told you, though, is that when you have more than two, you have to use something called et al. Okay, so Serafin et al., just like that, 2012. And then I need to make some sort of word that says what this is. Claimed that, and then we have quotation mark. Put a quotation mark at the end, a space. Actually, when it's like this, we do it just like that. Okay, this is a perfectly done APA quote. So think about that. Now, in the notes that I gave you, in fact, I think it's a cheat sheet, APA cheat sheet. I actually give you 4 different ways to cite your paper. So you can do it how I did it, which is this first one. You could do it where the author and year and page number come at the end. Oh, I forgot the page number. I need to go back and do that. You can put it like this and it's a paraphrase, or put it at the end and it's a paraphrase. But here's the big thing, because I know you want to avoid plagiarism. Be sure that you are giving complete credit. So if it is someone else's words, like in the case that we did here, I do need to put a page number. What's funny is my brain knew I was supposed to do something at the end, and I didn't do it, but my brain has been trained to do this. Okay, so you put the page number, go back to your article. Where was that quote? And that quote was right. I think it was on 378, right here. Okay, so 378. And the period goes on the outside. Did you notice that I dropped the last punctuation mark and I moved it to the outside of the parentheses? That's how you do APA, just like that. If you forget, the APA cheat sheet is in the week 7 work. Okay, now you'll notice too that these names, yes, I could find them at the beginning of my article, but we put it in the references. That's what a reference page is, or bibliography as it was. Okay, so you have already found this information, so you can just choose the person's name and the year it was published, and then you're done. Okay, now, so far there's the assertion. This part is the proof. And then we need an explain. Okay, so obviously I want you to do a continuous paragraph, but I want you to see it broken up into parts. Now, I told you before that you can say the phrase, this shows or proves, because what does that prove? Teachers and students can improve their ability to evaluate their strengths and weaknesses, to learn to use the knowledge strategically. So this shows when metacognition is applied to teaching and learning, students tend to remember more. So I just took what it said here and I put it in my own words, and that's my explanation. I'm tying it back to the thesis that learning should happen in this way. All right, so that is the basic paragraph. Now, you have a lot of words to write for this paper. So one of the methods I recommend is not just APE, but add a little transition in there, and then another proof and another explain. Ideally, you would find another quote from a different article, so not the Seraphin et al., but a different article that proves it. I know for my references, I had the Seraphin, and then I had this Rylene, and then some others. So I could find maybe something from that article and include it as well, so that I have a good solid paragraph. But if you follow this format, it actually works out really well that you do this APE, TPE, and T stands for transition. And then prove, explain. So assert, prove, explain, transition, prove, explain. So my transition sentence could actually be something like, similarly, if someone named Johnson and Reed, we'll say that was 2018, found that blah, 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 blah. And that's how you do it. You're writing a solid paragraph based on the assertion, the proof, and the explain. I hope this makes sense in writing your papers. And that's it. Good luck.